Hi, we're from Daily Wonder. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Jennifer.
And today we're going to talk to you about the signs of overwhelm in kids.
Sometimes they're pretty obvious. It might be that they're, just slumping over in their desk, they're sliding off their chair, their eyes are glazing over. Sometimes they might just say that they're bored.
They keep changing the subject whenever you're about to dive into the next thing. They change the subject and talk about lunch at grandma's or talk about the dog, things like this. They're just distracted and not engaged and slumpy.
So sometimes that's just happening on that particular day or just in a brief moment. So you could get up and have this body break where they're doing some sort of physical activity or there's some sort of brain game they like to do. Something that is still nourishing them and supportive but playful and feels like a game or a break is a perfect idea. You could be throwing and catching a ball or find out how many times can you bounce the ball and catch it without dropping it, little challenges.
Adding those little challenges.
Yeah, those are always fun. But sometimes it might be that you see those behaviors and they're just dragging out over a longer period of time. That might be a sign that your routine needs to be refreshed. Every great routine only lasts. Let me rephrase this. We always say how important rhythm and routine is. So the big structure, like the bookends and some of those really big pieces in your day are key pieces of structure that you don't want to change. But within that, there are smaller routines that last maybe for 4 to 6 weeks. They're great. And then you notice something needs to change. So that might be a sign that your children are just getting fidgety and overwhelmed because it's maybe too much of one type of activity or too much of the same song or too much of some sort of aspect of the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just observing and being, kind of understanding that, everything works for a time and then needs subtle adjustments or bigger adjustments. And you just kind of rework it as you go along.
I had this experience today where I was working with a child who was a little bit distracted and not so engaged in the subject we were focused on, and she wanted to focus on the dog instead. So I took the subject of her dog and used it to guide us back by talking about what the dog was doing and which words are the nouns and which are the verbs and what does the name start with and these kinds of things, and just redirected it back around. And sometimes that works. And it's just being full of energy and creative as the parent leading that and redirecting that.
And I think sometimes kids are, they get too silly or resistant. Another suggestion we had was, you might use the same verse that you've been using for a while in a circle, but you're suddenly saying it in different voices, like you're just a big giant and you're thumping, or you're the tiny little mouse and you're squeaking it, or you're saying it as fast as you can or slow. So you can get very creative with the same material and have them, I used to do that with my grade 1 class. Now let's say the verse, we were gnomes marching around, and sometimes the gnomes were grumpy and they were shouting the verse and they thought that was hilarious. And sometimes they were crying the verse and laughing the verse. So that makes it more engaging and interesting if you feel like you've exhausted kind of the basics of your material.